beautiful motherwort. I cannot wait. We're gonna be harvesting this beautiful motherwort soon. This weekend's gonna be a pretty busy weekend, and I'm gonna slowly start chipping away at some of the things that we're gonna be harvesting. We've got a lot of chamomile that's ready to go. We have some more calendula that we need to harvest, as well as motherwort, feverfew, holy basil, all the things. And I want to talk about catmint. I've had a lot of people ask about kid-friendly herbs. This would be a very good kid-friendly herb. Because the flowers are starting, I'm gonna leave a good bit for our pollinators, because I tell you what, they appreciate these flowers. The other aspect to leaving flowers is that you will have that regenerative aspect. If we take all the flowers, that means that there's not gonna be any seeds that we can then harvest and save and then use for next year. I barely made a dent. But this is a perfect amount for what we need to do. Now, one of the reasons why I prefer to grow herbs that produce the abundance of flowers is exactly that. I mean, look how many flowers are on one little plant, which produces the nectar, which produces the volatile oils, which produces the pollen. I look at our honeybees and what they're foraging for. You know, why are they going to certain plants? Why are they drawn to it? And then once you start connecting that honeybees are using plant medicine. I mean, this is plant medicine. This is their food. Plants are food. Herbs are food. So it just kind of like, don't separate it. Just put it all into one big category. This is a food source. It's a food source for our honeybees, but it also has properties for us. So I try to grow the herbs that are not just going to be beneficial for me, for my family, for the people that I have around, but also for our honeybees. So let's go take this back in the apothecary and get it ready for preservation, as well as setting it up in a tincture. I started talking to this camera and didn't realize that I forgot to push the button, so we're gonna like just redo and just pretend that there's nothing in this jar. All right, this lovely little plant, Catmint, or Nepeta cataria is the scientific name if you want to look it up that way. It has a very interesting smell to it when it's fresh. I actually prefer this in a tea form, so that is why I plan on loading it up into the Harvest Right freeze dryer to preserve. You can air dry it, you can dehydrate it, but if you guys have kind of been following, I do a little bit of everything. But freeze drying is definitely kind of like on the top tier for me when it comes to herb preservation, mainly because it maintains the nutritional and medicinal properties way more than dehydrating and even air drying. Now, when I do freeze dry it, I treat it just like fresh. It just doesn't have the moisture in it because of the process. Freeze drying herbs will allow you to maintain them for like up to 25 years if stored properly, versus air drying, which is like 2 years roughly. If anyone is interested in a Harvest Right freeze dryer, I do have an affiliate link down below. It does let everybody know, like, hey, The Honeystead is sharing some cool stuff with herbs, and lets them know that we are helping educate and share just some good stuff. What I'm doing right here is picking off the leaves. I did go ahead and just harvest the aerial part, mainly because it's just too hot out there to just pick off leaves. Leaves are more ideal to use in this plant. If I'm like really restless and tired, catmint is perfect in a tea form. And a glycerin form, it's going to be another way to be able to get the medicinal properties, the extract out of it, which would probably be a little bit easier to use on your little guys, you know, versus having them drink tea. So when we work with the plant matter, we also kind of we factor in how is it going to be taken? You know, is the individual gonna like a tea, or are they gonna prefer a tincture? So having alternatives are great. Now this one is also really beneficial if you have like an upset stomach. I've known people who will use it for colic, upset stomach, digestive issues. You know, they just need to settle the gut, and then also just kind of definitely a sedative, definitely for allowing your body to sleep. Sleep is so important, and that is one thing that we sometimes take for granted. As adults even, you know, our bodies, we're so like on the go, but we really forget that sleep is the best thing for your body to reset. So having a medicinal herb that grows in your garden, offers good stuff to your bees, can help with digestive issues, and then also can just allow your body to just, you know, calm it down for you to be able to reset for the next day, I think is the most important. You know, we forget that we need that reset ability. And so that is why I wanted to introduce this plant to you and kind of share it with you, because it's very easy to grow. And I mean, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful plant. It has beautiful flowers. The bees love it, and it does a lot more than, you know, just grows. So basically with this ratio for this tincture, I found one recipe that I'm going to try. I'll pull it up. I think it was Thomas Easley's book, which is a 1:5 ratio. So that's 1 part plant matter to 5 parts of the glycerin. So you'll have a little bit more. I'm gonna eyeball it because I kind of have, you know, my measurements here. I'm going to eyeball it. One, because I don't know what I did with my scale, but that is okay. This is going to be for us. But if you guys want to measure it, definitely you're gonna measure out 1 part plant matter to 5 parts of your glycerin. Now you can actually do this with alcohol as well. 100 proof vodka. I've even seen some people will do 95% vodka, which is like what, 190 proof. I think that's right. You can do it with alcohol if you want to. If you were to do it with alcohol, you would switch your ratio up on fresh plant matter, which would be 1 part plant matter to 2 parts of your menstruum. If these were dry, you would do 1 part plant matter to 5 parts of your menstruum in alcohol. So just kind of take that into consideration when you're setting up a tincture. I'm actually just doing a small batch this go around because I don't really need a big batch of it, since it's not one that we typically use in a glycerin tincture. However, I am very much interested in having it because you never know when you're gonna need it. You never know. I mean, I've got kiddos here. They don't mind drinking tea, but in the event of they couldn't drink the tea, this might offer a little bit of relief for digestive, as well as if they are just having one of those whiny, cranky days. And maybe sometimes I might need it too. So I think that is gonna be just fine. It's a little fluffy right now, but if you were to, don't pack it down. It makes it a little bit more challenging. And I'm using food grade glycerin, which is super, super sticky. And yes, again, I eyeballed it. I actually might add a little bit more plant matter. The other thing that I like to do is pick the appropriate size jar for what you're doing, because you don't want all of this space. So you kind of want to have it filled all the way up to the top. That'll help prevent the oxidation of the plant matter that's inside. And if you get a little bit of the stem, it's not going to hurt you. The other thing is when I pick my leaves, you know, try to pick the good ones. Like if they've got some bit of funk on it, you don't necessarily want that in your extract or in your tea blend. So try to pick the leaves that are really looking good and beautiful and bright. If they've been nibbled on by a bug, you know, if you want to avoid that, you can avoid that. But if all of your plants have been nibbled by a bug, in my eyes, I would just use it. But you know, do try to pick the best leaves that you possibly can. I even brought a paper towel. All right, I'm gonna just top it. And I think that is going to be, I think that's gonna be just fine. And we're gonna treat this just like a regular tincture. We are going to shake it every single day. Also, the other thing that I will add that I don't know if I actually spoke about in one of my last videos, but when we set up a tincture in any type of menstruum, I do come up, shake it every day and check it, because sometimes you might need to add a little bit more of your menstruum of choice, because sometimes that plant matter will kind of absorb it a little bit. So just be mindful, if you have to add a little bit more, add a little bit more. It's not necessarily going to hurt it, but what I'm gonna do is put the name, Catmint, today's date, I don't even know. I'll find that out. And I did a 1 to 5, so 1 part plant matter to roughly 5 parts of my glycerin, which I have to make sure that I spell that right. And then after that, yeah, just the date, which I think it's the 20th. Label it and store it in a cool, dark space, preferably under your cabinet. And that is as simple as that. You're going to press this out, which basically means you're gonna take your strainer and a little bit of cheesecloth. You're gonna pour this in, and the plant matter is gonna stay in the cheesecloth, and you're gonna squeeze all of the liquid out of it. The liquid is then gonna be stored in an amber colored bottle, and you are going to then put it in a dropper form, whatever works for you. I like these. These are kind of my favorite. These are little 2-ounce bottles. They're great, perfect for on the go. I even have some 1 ounce, but the reason why you want the amber colored bottles is so that the plant matter doesn't get broken up in the sunlight. And dosage is 1 to 2 teaspoons up to 3 times daily. I also wanted to just go ahead and add these warnings just because I feel like you should. And again, always do your research on any plant matter that I share with you guys, because it's just gonna make you better. It's gonna make you better in understanding and familiarizing yourself with the plants. But catnip, it's generally safe for babies or children. However, taken in like an extreme large amount could potentially cause vomiting. So bear that in mind. The other contraindication is this is not one that you would take if you were pregnant or breastfeeding. But Thomas Easley also shares how this plant not only is good for your nerves, your nervous system, acting as a sedative, great for settling that upset colicky stomach, but also if you are coming down with something and you've got like cold chills and just, you know, ooh, that feeling, this might be one that that you would want to add into a dried tea blend, especially if you just need sleep. And again, it just goes back to what are the actions that this plant has to offer? What is it going to do? And how can you look at it to be able to benefit? And this one, you know, sleep is your best friend when you're not feeling good, whether that's you're cranky or your belly's upset or you're coming down with something. So simple. I'm gonna take it, put it down below, shake it up every single day, and I get to get this bad boy loaded up so that we can get this all preserved. Now, I'm not going to use the stem, but I found that after you freeze dried your plant matter, it is very easy to just kind of take your hand and run it down the plant matter to be able to get the leaves off and then have your stem separate. So that's why it's easier for me to just leave it on the leaves. Now, I am cutting off some of the flowers. Yes, we harvested it while there were the early phases of the flowers, but that's okay. You know, it's acceptable. It is more ideal to harvest this when it is just leaves, but I'm one of those types. Don't let it stop you. Don't let it stop you from harvesting if you just think that, you know, it might not be ideal, you know? So I'm just gonna put that there. It's not always perfect, but if it came down to needing this plant with flowers on it and not harvesting it, yeah, no, I'm gonna be a rule breaker. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and use what I can. So I am kind of pulling some of the big stems off, and this is a great way for me to just do a quick inspection, make sure it's good to go. I'm going to try to have each tray be exactly the same. Now with my herbs, unlike other food that I've gone and put in my harvest rate freeze dryer, with food and certain things, I do like to pre-freeze. I do like to pre-freeze my food, but not necessarily with herbs. With herbs, I don't mind just loading it right up. Next one I think we need to do is motherwort that I've been watching. The motherwort is beautiful. And then I also have spilanthes that I need to harvest and show you guys what to do with it. Spilanthes, it's a fun word. Toothache plant if you don't want to be bougie. But that one is a fun plant. Look it up. It's called toothache plant for a reason. You literally, I took one of the flowers and I put it in my mouth and my whole mouth went numb. So if you have the need for numbing of the mouth, that might be a plant to look at. I almost forgot to mention the other reason why that I like to leave my herbs on the stem when I'm getting ready to load them up into the freeze dryer is because sometimes the freeze drying process will blow the plant matter around, especially if it's something light, and it'll blow it around. So I found that if you keep your herbs on the stems, it will help prevent a confetti moment from opening up your freeze dryer when it's all done. I learned. And now we wait. So insert quick commercial that you can skip or watch, whatever you want to do, and we'll be back. So all in all, it took about 13 or 14 hours, and should have probably timed it, but that's okay. Now all I'm doing is just grabbing the stem and just going like that. It is so much easier to do things to freeze dry your herbs on the stem versus to pick each individual leaf off. Plus, I know I mentioned to you guys that when you're doing things that are like light and airy, they tend to blow around a little bit more. So leaving them on the stem, I feel, has been a lot more beneficial. So that is just a quick and easy way. If your catmint has a little bit of the stem on it, it is not the end of the world. Okay, leaves are traditionally what is being used, but you know, if it's on there, it's not gonna hurt. So I went ahead and grabbed the jar of catmint that I already had sitting on my shelf. Now this I did not grow. This I did purchase from a beautiful, reputable company, which is, this came from Pacific Botanical. Love them, they're great. But what I wanted to show is the difference between freeze-dried versus just regular processed, dried, sourced herbs. You can absolutely see the difference between the two. I mean, this is straight from the garden, loaded right up into the freeze dryer versus, you know, sourcing it, which again, a lot of the herbs that I can't grow here or can't forage for, I will absolutely source. But this is special. You know, this was grown, started by seed, grown, harvested, and then freeze dried for us to be able to use and enjoy, and I have a lot more coming. This is just one harvest. I probably have a lot more that I need to get out there and work on. But I wanted to share the difference between the two because I know that that was kind of a question. A lot of people ask, well, why are you freeze drying? Why don't you just air dry? You can absolutely air dry. But what happens when you dry, air dry versus dehydrate versus freeze drying, your freeze dryer allows your herb to maintain as much as much of the properties as possible. The color is so much greener, and like, I know that you guys can't experience this, but when I open up the jars and I smell them, this smells fresh to me. This literally came straight from my garden and loaded right up to be able to preserve for up to 25 years if I stored it properly. Now, a lot of this we're gonna use way before that, but my next couple of harvests, I plan on already putting in Mylar bags and just kind of storing that away, mainly because, you know, my garden space is only so big, so I'm trying to get as much bang for my buck as possible and then also rotate out plants. So this year, if I'm focusing on catmint or calendula and chamomile, which, don't get me wrong, I'm probably gonna grow that much in abundance every single year, but by growing and preserving herbs this way, it allows me to kind of rotate it out. So next year, I might not grow this. Next year, I might grow something else in abundance of and just kind of have it stored away, which is why this is one of my favorite ways to be able to preserve. Now, all I have to do is label it and store it. And then while I'm up here, I'm gonna go ahead and give my glycerin catmint tincture a shake. And that's just gonna kind of move it around, make sure that there's no air bubbles in it, and it doesn't look like I need to top it off at all, but it is looking just fine. So this needs a little bit more time, but we're gonna keep it in a cool, dark space. So we're gonna let that glycerin tincture sit for a couple more weeks, and of course, when I go to press that out, I will grab the camera. We're probably gonna press out a bunch of different things at the same time. We might just make that a date, you know, because I think I have like, I know I have a lot. I've got wild lettuce, I've got the catmint, I've got the milky stage oats, which are looking beautifully, beautifully milky. If you guys missed that video, definitely go check that out. That is Avena sativa, setting up one of my favorite, this is my favorite medicinal herb that I have growing, but I say that about a lot of them. Anyways, we will more than likely set up a date where we just press out a whole bunch of tinctures and maybe we formulate something. Maybe I'll take you guys and show you how we formulate, because there are a few things that I want to set up. One of them is parasites. I've had a lot of people ask about parasites, and there are absolutely a lot of things that you can set up. And black walnut hulls, which I have a whole bunch of it already tinctured, ready to go. That is a really good medicinal plant that is good for parasite cleanse. So we'll talk all about that later, but for right now, I just wanted to share with you the goodness of the catmint and how stunning it looks, completely freeze-dried. So yeah, as always, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty and learn something old. Bye guys.